So I've asked Joseph Gutierrez. I'm going to introduce him. Joseph is the family and the family pastor. Do I have that right, Joseph?
Yeah. So our context is a little different. We're a family pastor. Some churches is like the kids pastor, but basically I get to oversee middle school, high school kids, and young adults.
Okay. And you guys don't have a children's pastor or director right now. Is that right?
That's me too,
That's
right
you.
now.
Okay. So you're in between. And Joseph's at Southwest Community Church in Indian Wells, California. And so Joseph, how long you been there at the church?
I've been here. I'll be I'm about a couple months away from my third year.
Okay. Okay. So just relatively not new, but
Yeah.
also not been there for 10 years. So that's cool. Tell us just a little bit about your church for those who don't know, and obviously for those who might be watching this on a recording later on. So just tell us a little bit about Southwest.
Yeah, so Southwest is an amazing church. It's changed recently throughout the years. We have a new senior pastor, Pastor Ricky Jenkins. He came on about 6 months after I did. And the church has just exponentially exploded. God's been doing some amazing things there and has changed the way we've done ministry and the way we look at ministry. So our mission is we're a gospel-centered, multi-ethnic, intergenerational church, and we love discipleship. And that's been seen throughout the change. That's a big change that's happening, where intergenerational ministry is happening more and more. Exchanges between the seasoned saints and those who are younger coming in and really having conversation with one another. Multi-ethnic has been an expression that we've seen more and more, where different people from different groups, ethnic divides and social economics, all those kind of things have come together and been meeting together. And then we've just seen discipleship just really, really explode. So it's been awesome.
Good. So you guys then, and your church is about how many people right now?
5,000 the last time we met together in a building. Since then, we've grown a little bit with going online, but about 5,000.
Okay. So that gives people some context as well. Obviously, the North Coasters, it's a huge church. Then we have other churches on the call that may not be so big. So what we're going to try to do today is the purpose of this is just to kind of share ideas, collaborate a little bit, and ask the question, what's working well for children's ministry? And so the whole idea too is that hopefully whatever is shared, as much as possible at least, we can see as transferable to, whatever church size or context that you're in. You might have to make some changes along the way. But I guess just to kick it off, Joseph, I mean, obviously, and for all of you guys in children's ministry, first of all, thank you for what you do. My wife and I have 3 kids, and I had the privilege of being a senior pastor for many years and recently stepping into the role of district superintendent here at EFCA West. But our children's ministry and my kids' involvement, our children's involvement in the children's ministry in our church is continuing to pay dividends in their lives. And it formed the foundation for who they are today. And it made our lives, our goals as parents of raising our children in the knowledge of the Lord so much easier, and just really complimented it so many ways. So I'm eternally grateful for so much of what you guys do, and a lot of it you don't necessarily always get the thank yous that you should, or the recognition that you should, but it's an amazing ministry that y'all have. And then you were told a few weeks ago that church is shutting down, and you can't be with your kids. Your volunteers can't be with their kids. So Joseph, tell us just briefly, how did you guys react to that? And what have you learned over the past, 4 or 5 weeks now of being in this kind of lockdown mode?
Yeah. So immediately, I probably did what most people did. I freaked out, and I'm like, we got to change everything, turn everything off, turn anything on, new things, let's explode. Let's blow up everything and then recreate things. So we kind of went nuts for the first couple of days. And then I kind of slowed down a little bit and I said, wait, let's re-look at this again and let me figure out what that means. And one of the biggest things we said was plans haven't changed, but platforms have. So it's not that everything gets completely thrown away. Ministry is still about people. You don't have to, we don't have to reimagine the idea that it's still caring about people. We're still engaging with people. We're still meeting people where they're at. It's just going to look a little bit different. So we haven't changed necessarily all of our plans now. We look back at our plans and say, hey, some of these plans still can work. We just have to change the platform in which we're using them. So we're going to meet people in different places. So was it Zoom? Is it the Facebook Lives? Is it the IG, Instagram? And even within that, my team, a lot of them were like, hey, let's do everything. Let's be on Facebook. Let's be on Instagram. Let's be on Snapchat. Let's be on and I'm like, whoa, let's master one at a time. And then see, is the need greater? Can we reach more people by expanding the different platforms that we have rather than like, let's just go everywhere at one time? No, let's centralize it. Let's become masters in one area. And then over time, see if there is a greater need to reach more people in different platforms. So immediately we said, okay, well, Facebook, we created a Facebook group and got and connected with our parents. And we didn't have that group initially. So we had to build that from the ground up. And we started seeing, we have probably about 350 parents now that have logged into that and are staying connected to us. So that was one thing that we did. The second thing we did was say, well, let's allow the context to help create content. So like the context we're in is different. And even like you said earlier, I appreciate what you said, that every church is different. I started off in a church that was a storefront church. Yes, I am working for Southwest Church. Yes, we have resources. Yes, we have different things right now, but this is truly leveled the playing field. Like there's nothing that we have that like, we're not allowed to spend any money right now, just like any other church. So we said, well, let's help the context create the content. Let's start talking with a small group of parents and finding out what do they need in this season, because we started giving out a bunch of resources. We created the Facebook page and then started just giving out a bunch of resources. Hey, let's give you this. Let's give you how to make crafts, how to make this, how to make that. And when we got the context back, when we got some of the when we started having conversation with some of our parents, we started realizing, man, they're tired of being the everything where I have to be in this new season. I have to be the parent, I have to be the teacher and the spiritual leader. I have to do all these different things that I never had to do before. And now you're just giving me more work to do. So we said, okay, well, let's figure out the difference between moments where we want to resource people and we want to give relief to people. Let's give relief to parents by giving them opportunities where we can do a how-to class with them and not just give them the YouTube page for the how-to class, where we can do a how-to of let's do a tie-dye shirt and do a how-to with them, or we can do a live, meet us at 7 o'clock, and we're going to do a live with you rather than for you, and we're just putting it out there, and now you have to go and perform this with your kids, with your family at home. So creating that small group of people helped a lot, where we got more content from them. We also asked them, hey, would you mind leaning into doing devos and stuff and sending them in? What that helped us do is when we got them to participate, when people weigh in, they buy in. So now they were creating content and helping distribute the content. Why? Because they were part of the creative process of developing the content. So once they were starting to do that, they were doing devos for their kids. And now it was devos that we can actually give to other people. We were asking them to send us a video of your kid praying. And we actually this weekend got to show that a part of our church service. And what an amazing moment where our church got to see our kids lead them in a moment of prayer. And so much response back from that moment where people were just so excited to see kids like being connected spiritually, even leading them, and the inspiration that these kids were inspiring them in a season where they were going chaotic, where they were having nervous, like they were experiencing some nervousness. And it just like, I mean, even for me as a leader, I'm watching these kids and like, I'm like tearing up because getting to see them express their faith through their prayer was just amazing as we got to put that together. So that was a really big thing for us as we're trying to create content, is really having a context, having a small group, having people that we can lean on, that we can say, hey, is this helpful to you? Or are we just giving you things because we think it's necessary, we think it's important? So in Andy Stanley's 7 Practices of Effective Ministries talked about like listening to outsiders. It was just a really big thing to say, hey, let's bring people in and let's listen to them. Let's not think we're the experts on everything. And I think that's such a huge key in this season is like, you don't have to be the expert in everything. In fact, I think some of the greatest experts are those who didn't stop being students. So there were people who just kept being students. So we have a good base of educators in our church, and we're leaning on those educators and saying, hey, like, you're figuring it out right now too, but what are you doing that's working? What's not working? Psychologists, and saying, hey, what can we do to resource some of these families that are having a difficult time in our church? Other leaders in other areas, we just reached out to different people and said, hey, we don't have it all figured out. Me and Tim talked the other day, and I said, I feel like I'm in a rowboat building like Titanic. I still feel like that. We don't have it all figured out yet. And we're okay with not being experts at everything. Like, we don't have it all together, and that's fine. And I think people like that authenticity and like to be part of the process. So this is not a time where we have backed away from utilizing volunteers. It's just utilizing them differently. In a team meeting today, I told our team, like, start redesigning what volunteer looks like in the season, like create new positions. There's a moment in scripture where they're going through this season of there's been no rain, it's been a drought, it's been hard, and they start digging ditches, and dependent on the amount of ditches they dug, that was the amount of rain that was sent to fill those ditches. I told our leaders, hey, let's start digging ditches, like let's start building new positions and allow God to fill those positions in the season by saying, hey, I need a new person who's going to be like my leader in these settings. Now we're having to have security who just looks through, because there's been all these issues where they call them Zoom bombings, where people come in and they log into an account like this and they just do inappropriate things. Now we have like security guards on things like this that are looking through the pages and making sure, do we have to remove someone? They're having the admin rights and making sure that nothing inappropriate is being sent out. So reimagining new positions, and in a season like this, to say, hey, if we build it, we believe God will send them, but we have to create what's new in this realm. Does that make sense?
No, it does. And you threw out a lot of things there, and so I just want to back up and make sure that we caught it all. No, it's great, and then you can continue to kind of elaborate on that stuff. But what I heard you saying was that we have parents. You're engaging parents in creating some of this content. So you have parents that are doing devotionals and sending them in, and obviously you're evaluating the quality of that to some degree. You're having them film their kids praying, and you're showing that. But the idea is you're creating. You said allow the context to drive the content, and the context is we're all at home, we're all kind of in the same boat. One of the things that was really interesting, and we had our webinar with Mark Lewis a few weeks ago, EFCA Crisis Response. And this guy was very involved with Hurricane Katrina and that response and all kinds of different disasters. One of the things that's different about the situation we're dealing with now is it's not localized to one particular area. Everybody is dealing with this, from celebrities to politicians to CEOs to Christians, atheists, whoever, young, old, whoever you are, we're all stuck in our homes. And so thinking about how does that reshape how we're doing ministry. So even creating positions that are different because to be able to facilitate the time. So obviously one of my questions to you is how are you engaging volunteers? And I guess that kind of answers a lot of it.
Yeah, so it's a perfect way to disciple too. As they're sending devotionals, like it's an awesome opportunity to say, like, we're talking about that first with them. So we're sending them scripture, not just saying, here, do a devotional. It's sending them scripture and walking them through, what do you see in the scripture? What is God telling you? And then through that, we're building the devotional together. And it's a discipleship partnership that we get to do, as well as they're creating content. And again, as they share it, as they give it to us, we're sharing it, and they're sharing it and more likely to share it with their group of friends. And now our circles are expanding because people are now inviting their friends and families to engage with us in this content that we're creating because they're a part of it. So engaging in that way, also just engaging like where their time looks a little bit different. We challenged our team to say, hey, Before, our leadership structure was very flat, and we wanted to say, let's build more where you're leading leaders who are leading leaders. Well, this is a great season where I can now have a small group with my leadership, my top tier leadership, and to challenge them, have a small group with their leaders. What was everyone's excuse before this? Time. I don't have the time. I don't have the time. What do people have now? Time. Well, if we can engage them now for what's next and create rhythms that are normalized in this season, when it comes to the future seasons, all of a sudden we've created muscle memory that they're like, hey, I have time for this now because it was a priority then, and I want to keep this because it kept me healthy then. I want to keep this in my future context of what life looks like beyond this moment. So a big thing is, let's create rhythms. Like, let's not just do new things for the sake of doing new things. So let's do coffee chat with Pastor Joe. No, let's do something that we normally do. So we used to do Tuesday night, like small groups for the entire family on campus. Well, we're going to do that now. It's going to look different. Platforms changed. Plans haven't changed, but platforms changed. But we're still providing that same content, like that same thing, that it becomes a rhythm that when we get out of a season like this, there's a normalized rhythm that they're used to, that we're still having ways to connect.
And there's a question here on the chat box. How do you engage those who are already feeling overwhelmed? And I think this goes back to, so most of my church is experiencing the fact that they are out of work or working and homeschooling, and their stress level's so high. And I don't want to add one more thing. That's a legitimate point. So I'm sure you've heard that as well, Joseph. So how do you balance, these new ideas and these new contexts? And obviously, in our position as pastors and leaders, like we get excited about stuff, and we're always thinking, and we kind of want to think that way. But then we have a whole group of people too that are kind of like, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And so how do you answer that?
So there's two parts to that question. One of them is, like, we have a care ministry that's at the church that does amazing jobs at doing some of the care aspect of helping them with jobs and all those kind of things. But the other side of it is, man, I've noticed even before this, I've worked for a small storefront church where I was a volunteer, and I was not, the reason people are burnt out is not because of what they're doing, is because they don't know why they're doing what they're doing. So when you give them a why and you engage them in being an opportunity like this, I give in moments like this, and I leave moments like this, and it feels so much more energy, so much more excitement, because Jesus said it himself, like, it's better to give than to receive. We're giving people the opportunity to be a part of this. So yes, they're drained in all the other aspects, but when I'm giving, like, and I'm leading out of an overflow, and now they're feeling that and they're experiencing that, people want to engage in different ways. The reason there's a lot of times the reason they're feeling so overwhelmed is because they're doing it by themselves. So when you do it in community, when you do it with other people, when like the meetings that I'm having, I'm walking away from small groups and I'm walking into it. And I'll be honest with you, I'm walking into small groups sometimes like, I have to do it. And then walking out of small groups like, I got to do that. And I'm so thankful that I got to do that, because it was so refreshing to see so-and-so's face who I haven't seen in such a long time. It was so good to see this person, it click, and they got it. And they finally understood it. This thing that's happening in this person's life. And yes, there's a bunch of things going on in their life right now, but these moments where they can still give and feel like, man, God is doing something bigger than me. If we can give them that, if in this time when everything else is chaotic, when there's nothing else to trust, when there's nothing else to hope for, we give them the hope that we know we have, and we can allow them to give it to other people. They're not walking away drained. They're walking away with excitement.
Okay, so I'd like to hear from just a few others of you that maybe are, how are you dealing with some of these issues as well? What are some of the things that, and Joseph, you've set us up great. I love a lot of these ideas, and there's a lot more that you can continue to share. I want to hear from maybe a few others of you. Just kind of tell us what are you learning through all this as well, and how are you dealing with even the issue of fatigue among the people in your church and your volunteers, keeping your families and everyone engaged. Anybody have anything they want to throw in on that? I'll give you all a few more seconds.
I'm Dan. What I've kind of created is I wanted to start our kids spending time with Jesus at home, and we obviously send stuff home for it, but now it's like I feel like there's an opportunity to really press into that. So what I have done is what we're calling them daily doses for kids. Feeling that it's the pressure of families right now have a lot going on. I mean, my wife with life and kids and homeschool now and all of that, it's a lot of change. So what I've done is the Bible app for kids, and I just started with that. I don't know what we're going to do next, but every day have the kids go through the Bible app. I asked our families to download it. I figure it's a simple way of doing something that the kids can do themselves. They don't need the parents' really involvement. Even my 3-year-old can do it by himself. So and then just adding a few questions onto the evening meal that I've come up with, just to kind of like make it simple, reproducible, and as well as kind of getting our whole community to do something together. All of our kids are doing something together right now that before we didn't have a good way of checking in on that, or giving somebody every day something. I think sometimes we send a lot of stuff home on Sunday, and it's like, well, hope you do it, or it kind of ends up in the paperwork. So I kind of thought this might be an opportunity to kind of start, hopefully put in some new DNA.
So Dan, what church are you at?
Journey Church in Kingman, Arizona.
Oh, okay. Very cool. All right. And, but see, what you're saying kind of goes back to what Joseph was saying earlier, that the plans haven't changed, but the platforms have. I wrote that down also. Allow the context to drive the content. So you're saying, how can I drop something in every day? And it seems like, or at least regular during the week. And we're thinking differently about that than we did before. Like you said, a lot of times it was, hey, here's something that they have on the weekends that they can do, when they come to church. And then, hopefully something happens during the week. But now there's a lot of intentionality. So anybody else on that? Just thoughts of how you're engaging people during the week that you found as being helpful.
I'm Sarah, and we have started to do family table talk, and it's just once a week that families get a question sent to them, and it's usually a general question, like I'm trying to, let's see, I can pull them up, but it's a general question that then forces them to open their Bible and see what the Bible has to say about the topic that we brought up. So for instance, it was, if you could make one rule that everyone in the world would have to follow, what would it be? And then to see what the Bible says, look at Matthew 22:36-40. So our church system allows us to send it out via our database, and we've been sending them out to our elementary school families. And so they know every Thursday at 5 o'clock, they're going to get this question, and they can ask it around their dinner table. So start the conversation, but then also points them back to Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's good. Bob Osborne wrote, sometimes that overwhelmed feeling grows out of difficulty in determining what to do next. The next step is drowned out by the sheer number of issues being faced. And Bob knows this just as a guy who's worked with the sheriff's department and dealing with crisis issues and everything else. And just how do you help people get into a mindset where they can be productive? So getting someone started on one beneficial thing can help them start ordering other issues in life. That said, we need to come alongside those who are having real needs. So Joseph, have you dealt with fatigue on the part of some of your volunteers? And if so, how have you addressed that or dealt with it?
Yeah. So I think, again, same thing that we said before, the plans haven't changed, the platforms have. We're still doing small groups, and each leader has leaders that they're leading in small groups, and it should go all the way down. North Coast can probably speak to this very well because they do small groups way better. But the idea isn't like, hey, you have to, if you have 100 volunteers, you have 10 volunteers. The idea is not to do a small group with all of them. The idea is do a small group with a few, and have those leaders do small group with other people. Like as you go down, the idea of that hasn't changed, and you can help people in small groups. You can't help all 100 of your volunteers. So there's philosophies that we've carried. Orange does a lot with this talk with the idea of leading small. And the idea is that when we lead small, we can impact the large by leading small. So I know the needs that are happening. So with my staff, we can have meetings regularly of just what's going on, what's, we call them God brags. What are some things that God's just doing inside of your ministry that are really cool, but also what are some things that we need to do and help and facilitate in this moment. So we're partnering with, we're also partnering with other organizations. Like we don't have to do everything. Like there are some great people in the realms of education that parents are like, hey, I'm trying to figure out how to do this better. Cool. We have some teachers that are kind of figuring it out. That kind of got some good tools that they can use. We can lean into those kind of, we don't have to. I think sometimes being leaders or pastors, we're like, I have to be the expert in everything. No, like the thing that you have is you have to point people to others who are experts. And that's all of our job, our responsibility is saying, hey, you need help in this realm. Let me point you to some people that are really good in this. Let me give you one thing. So we are seeing that there are some people, I have a person in my small group, and one of the small groups that I meet with, who lost a job recently. And man, we had a great time of just praying with him and believing for him. And I got a text not too long ago where he's like super excited about this season and has a fresh perspective on the family time that he's getting to experience versus the pain that he was experiencing before, and just focusing in on that.
Yeah, I think that's a theme that's come out a few times. I don't want it to get missed. I think one thing that we're all kind of forced to grapple with is leaning in to experts, or even not just experts, but just other people and the gifts and talents and abilities that they have in ways that we never thought they could. And I think part of that's just sitting back and being creative. Even for me in the district superintendent position, is I'm asking, okay, what are our churches going to, and our pastors and leaders, what are they going to need? It's forced me to reach out to people I never would have reached out to before. And so I'm even thinking about, we're going to do a webinar in a few weeks on mental health, the mental health kind of PTSD issues that a lot of people are dealing with. Well, I got to find somebody who's, do I want someone who's a believer? I do, but I also want someone, not just a pastoral counseling person, but someone who maybe has some training in dealing with on post-traumatic stress, or not even post, but traumatic stress, because we're still in the middle of it, and how to recognize some of that stuff. And so it's forcing me to lean into people that I've never thought of before, never would think of engaging. And I think that's where the creativity a lot of times comes from as well. And that can prevent us from the overwhelmed feeling of, I have to do it all myself right now. There really is a new rule book that's kind of being written on our ability to engage people. And I don't know how long this window will last. We should always be in that place, but it's very easy right now because, hey, we're in this crisis mode. But once this normalizes, I wonder if this is going to be a theme. And that's one of the questions I wanted to ask you too, Joseph. How do you see what you've been learning over the past few weeks? Obviously, at some point, we want to be able to gather together again, as the way we used to. But what kind of thing? Well, let me ask you two questions. First of all, what do you see as lingering issues once the church is able to meet again? Have you guys talked about that at all? I mean, we're still going to have the potential of sick kids, and do you have the plague? Does your kid have the plague? I mean, how are you going to deal with those kinds of things? Have you guys thought about that at all?
Yeah, so a little bit. Our thinking right now is really, let's plan as if like this is normal for the next 6 months for sure. What
is normal? What would be normal?
This lifestyle, like being in homes, let's prepare as much as possible that this is just the new normal for us for the next 6 months. So as an executive team, we've been meeting and saying, like, we're locked in till September, creating plans of, this is how we're meeting. This is how we're doing life. This is like, let's not wait for this next season that's going to fix everything. We can meet in a building and we're handicapped by a building and meeting into a building again, but let's plan and prepare that this is life. So how do we do well in creating a simulations process that we once had in a building online? How do we create processes for them to do and to facilitate certain things like this online. So, reimagining baby dedications, reimagining like how we do everything that we would normally do inside of a building. How do we do that now in this new season? So like in the idea of baptisms, everything, we're just saying, how do we create this that by, like, we're not saying, I think some of us are still like in this, let's just wait till things become normal and just try to get us through the season. But let's we're doing both, and where we're trying to heighten this tension between both, and we're preparing now for what's next, but we're also believing that this might be a longer than we assumed in the beginning, and not going week to week, but we're planning months out now.
Okay. So,
and then some of that,
yeah,
I think to connect back to what we were talking about before and still connect with this idea is the idea of taking care of yourself as a leader is so important. Like in the idea of your volunteers, I want you to take care of volunteers, but I think a lot of it, they're looking to you to be their leader. And if we're not taking care of ourselves very well, and we're burnt out and we're exhausted and we're going into a new meeting and we're talking to them and we're living through, like, don't minister out of your cup, minister out of your overflow. But if you don't have an overflow, like that's some of the biggest issues that I've seen across the board is people are walking into the next meeting. They have nothing to give because they haven't been feeding themselves. And therefore they're saying, all my leaders are exhausted. Well, they're exhausted because they're taking the cues off of you. Have you been looking at the different, a while back ago, Craig Shaw had a talk about everything requires energy out of you, and not just a certain amount of energy, but a certain type of energy. And he talked about 4, but I've kind of narrowed it down to 3: a physical energy, an emotional and creative energy, and a spiritual energy. Like, are you refilling those cups? Because sometimes we're like, I'm tired. I'm just going to burn out on Netflix and watch 5 seasons of something crazy and think that's going to restore me. That's going to fill me up. Like, no, that's not going to fill you up. If you're physically tired, yes, but right now we're not physically tired. We're emotionally tired because we're dealing with difficult decisions, difficult people, and a difficult season. And now you're trying to, so a way we can help our volunteers is first by helping ourselves in a way that we're feeling ourselves, that when we have a meeting with them, we have something to give, and we're not an empty cup feeding another empty cup. And then go ahead.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, so what you're saying, I think is really true, is we have to take a perspective that we may be in this for the long haul, and that hopefully sometime soon in the next couple months, we'll be able to meet together again, hopefully. But even if that happens, there still could be the possibility of a flare up. And this is one thing that Ed Stetzer was saying, and the Send Network, and they were some of the Zoom calls they were having, was that what they see is the possibility of a flare-up. So let's say everything is kind of getting back to normal and businesses are opening, but all of a sudden, boom, there's a flare-up in Indian Wells, in Coachella Valley, and there's a massive, and then so the local government says, nope, next 5 weeks we got to shut down. Same thing could happen in any one of our more local. So to have those plans ready in place to say, okay, we know what we did before, but it's even a mindset of saying this we need to settle in this for a while. And I love what you're saying about energy management and also energy cultivation. For me, I've got a Post-it note, one of those big giant Post-it notes in my dining room is kind of like my war room right now, where I got stuff. I kind of took the thing over and I have my Post-it notes up everywhere. But my number one personal commitment is exactly what you said: cultivate energy, because I don't have it all the time. And so I can't give what I don't have. And I think that's a message. And I know we have a lot of women on this call, and you guys, I know you're moms. You're not always full-time, you're part-time. When it's dinner time, a lot of them, the family looks to you for survival. They don't look to your husband, or, if you have a husband. I know that my kids don't look to me. They look to my wife. And so so you guys are going to really have to figure out, how do you cultivate energy? And you know what? Don't feel guilty when you can't do it all. And this is something that I want to give a big hats off to Chris Brown for, because he challenged us with this last week. Chris Brown from North Coast said, they said really quickly that they kind of did that same thing at first, where they're like, hey, let's just reinvent everything. And then they stopped really quickly and said, we don't want to burn the staff out. So he even used the word forced sabbatical, which I think when you have a large church that has a lot of staff, that's a little easier for some of the churches that are smaller. But the idea of a forced sabbatical, meaning like, we know we're all in the same boat. We're going to have to spend time with our families. It's okay to not do everything. And I think especially it's essential to not do everything, because if it's true that we could be in this for the long haul, we've got to position ourselves with that mindset. The rocket, go out of the gate hard, that lasts in temporary seasons. And we have to and you have to be okay. And I think, those of you in children's ministry need to be able to communicate that to your senior leaders as well and say, listen, we're good, but we're going to have to track our energy management here, especially when it comes to children's ministry and all the volunteer issues and everything else. What do you think, Joseph?
Well, yeah, and I'm thinking a lot of these churches are reporting they're reaching more people than ever before. They're making a bigger impact than they ever before, using less resources. Well, if that's the case, what happens when we do come back in a building and we've grown more? Are you going to be ready for more when you've been in a season where we're like pulled back a lot and you're overextending yourself, you're running 1,000 miles an hour, and now we get back to a season where there's more children, because why? There's more families being reached. There's more communities being touched, because now they're at home and they have nothing to do on a Sunday, and we're giving them opportunity to watch them, to watch a service. If that family chooses to join us in the future, are we prepared for what our team is praying for? Our team is praying that there would be an explosion. Our team praying is that there would be more people reached. Our team's praying that we're going to make Jesus famous. And if that happens, is your church ready, not just for like the sick policies and all of that, like have those in place, make sure you have extreme measures when it comes to sick policy when we come back, but are you also ready for what could be a lot of people coming to Christ for the first time, or coming back who've walked away from church and said, hey, I need more than ever, I need social connection, because I've been social distancing myself for such a long time. I need something. And the church is the place that provides that the most. Well, what happens in that? Are we ready for more people coming? And I think so we have to position ourselves for both. And there's tons of tensions to manage throughout ministry. One of them is going to be, how well do we do with sick policy? How well do we do with issues that come up as a lingering issue that comes a part of this? But there also been an amazing opportunity to reach more and to make a greater impact. And I've seen it, and I've seen many churches report that their online experiences have been reaching more and more people have been coming to Christ. Well, if that's the case, are we ready for what the possibility of that means when we do meet again?
Yeah. So guys, I guess there really is a tension that is a necessary tension that I would hope as a theme of this webinar would kind of come through. But yes, there's a lot of opportunity, and yes, we got to be thinking differently, and there's a level of aggressiveness, and especially, if you're a children's director or children's pastor, and you work for a type A senior pastor, they're probably like talking this way all the time, like, yeah, go, 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 go. But so that's okay. And there really is a gospel moment. I believe it, but that has to be held in tension with your own energy capacity, your own family, your own personal, avoiding burnout and everything else. And I think the answer to that tension, or at least what's going to help alleviate it, is realizing that, it's just the whole biblical thing of when Paul says, I plant, Apollos waters, but who gives the growth? The growth. God gives the growth. God's going to be the one who gives the growth no matter what. So if when you come back, there's a surge of people, we just trust that God provides those people, the volunteers and the structures in place, but then we do what we can in the best of our abilities. Bob was mentioning too, and you can see in the chat box that we talked a little bit before about flare up. We're flattening the curve. I think there's some positive things that are happening, it seems like right now, but this could, if you look at influenza, the great influenza from 100 years ago, there was several waves. So there was the first one, and then it kind of went away in the summer, but it came back again in the fall. And that is a possibility. So it's the idea of being nimble and being flexible, and hopefully building that a little bit more into our culture. So this
I
is
think something that'll help with that
is
there's tons of resources that are being sent out. I mean, Lifeway, Orange, Hillsong, Life Church, Grow Curriculum. All these people are sending out free stuff. Like, you don't have to reinvent wheels. You don't have to do everything yourself. There are tons of things that like I was listening to a little bit of Chris Brown's talk too, and I have that tension where I'm like, man, I want to do it. I want to do it better. And then I'm like, no, like, we can rest a little bit in the fact that there are some things that we can do that are copy and paste. Like, it's still the gospel. It's presented in this way. Like, there are some things that we can do. You don't have to do everything yourself. You don't have to create brand new curriculum. You don't have to run more. There are some ways that you can still build some like, or reserve some energy for other things that are more important, like the moments you have small group, like the moments you have leadership talks, like the moments that you are building into your people more. So there are ways that you can still conserve while still like in the process of innovation, still doing and sending out more. And they're giving it away. Like, many of these people are giving it away.
Yeah. So, so then getting down to some of the specifics here, Sarah's asking, does anyone have a sick or wellness guide already in the works for when we get back? Can we share that together? If you've got one and you can link it somehow, would you put that in the chat box for us to see? That'd be really helpful. If there's something you're working on, or maybe if you're working on it, just put your email and we can contact you, and maybe you can send it out when it's done. This would be a great way for us to kind of share resources together. Even if it's not completed yet, but just whatever you're using, because, or yeah, you can just email us, and as we get stuff, we'll try to get it out to you. But that's a great question, because it's going to be a different culture. Our answer a couple of years ago, when there was some kind of, at our church, we just put a thing of Purell out in the lobby, a couple of those little dispensers, and that was our way of just saying, okay, don't worry about the flu, we're because we don't want people to avoid church. I think the way people are going to interact with each other is going to be different. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't even want to sneeze. I don't even want to cough. I don't want to clear my throat, because I'm afraid I'm going to get the look of death from everybody around me. Like, you've got the plague. Get away from my kids, get away from my parents. So I think that's an issue there. And so the other, this is another question. Does anyone have creative ideas or plans for their kids' camps or VBS? I'd like to see if someone wants to chime in on that. Have you guys already made plans? Maybe one of the North Coasters can chime in. Do you guys do anything in the summer? Are you still going with that? Are you changing plans? What are your thoughts? Yes. Christine.
So we have been talking about it. It's hard to make concrete plans because we just don't know. But one thing that we've done in the past, we're actually one church, two campuses, and we bring in a group from LA to put on our summer camps. But again, I think because the economy is probably going to take a dip, we're probably going to combine. And that's a full day camp. It's 1 week, 9 to 4. The cost is like $199, but we're just thinking parents are going to be scrambling after this is lifted. So one is consolidating, condensing, but the other is maybe offering something that's half day, a little bit smaller, a little bit more doable. My thought is the parents aren't thinking, they're not making summer plans, because all the camps that they've signed their kids up for are all saying, hang tight, we're not sure what we're going to do. But most of the summer camps are continuing to move forward. They're like, but I think we can make it. So we're sort of just following what other summer programs are doing.
Okay. Great. Anybody else want to chime in? Yes, I see Candace. Candace.
We just got word actually that our summer camp was completely canceled, and that we could transfer to next year's if we'd like. So I'm currently in the process of working on a 1 day camp for the kids, where we're going to try to, if the orders are all lifted, try to do 1 day with sports and crafts and activities and worship, and kind of just a big bash for the summer. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Okay.
And we just talked about that a little bit today. So we're in the process of creating 2 plans. One is a strictly digital plan. So it'll be something similar to what's happening right now, but obviously a little bit more activities. It's smaller kids, so about an hour each day versus normally we would do 3 to 4 hours a day, Monday through Friday, or a digital with a if laws change, where they would come by and pick up a package from us. Again, if this is able, and pick up a package of how to do it at home. We would still have the media that they can go online and do it at home, but then it would break up into segments where it would be first, here we do this together, and here's the big lesson, and then we go into the games. And inside of your bag, you have a cup that you can do a game with, and you take that out, and we would. So it's both and that we're trying to create a package for, because we don't know what that looks like. So either strictly digital, or it's going to be a digital with some like drive-through experience where they come pick up a package and they have it at home.
Great. Any other input on this? Seems like the general consensus.
I
Sarah?
was just going to say one thing that I know it's all just based on when we can do things, but we're trying to prepare for couples night out once this gets lifted, because these parents are going to need some time away from their kids and to rebuild their marriage. So we're coming up with curriculum that we can really love on the kids during that time, because we'll take them for 4 hours. And then we're just waiting for this to get lifted so we can start to do this. And already talking with volunteers now saying, would you be interested in doing this? We understand that maybe you're elderly or you're younger. So we're kind of hoping that you're going to jump on board, because our elderly won't as much. So just kind of having that in place. So as soon as it gets lifted, we can launch our next couples night and do them kind of more back to back, so these parents can just focus back on their marriage after such a hard time.
Yeah. I love that. I love the idea of preparing and trying to think through in advance what the issues might be, that of just re-engaging back together once we get out of this crisis, and how our different ministries can be able to meet the needs that our families have. I also agree with Ashley that I think that's a very good point, that if there is another flare up, the nice thing is we're able to kind of we're building processes that we've never had to build before, that will hopefully be in place that you could enact much more quickly. Although albeit it would be kind of discouraging to have to go back to that if in fact that's what happens, but at least you know. And so part of that I think is just taking really good notes on what's happening now, and going back, and you guys know this, I know you guys will do this a lot, but even just those 4 questions, what's right, what's wrong, what's confusing, what's missing, just asking those questions and evaluating constantly so that you're getting better, documenting that stuff. So then you can go back, and if you have to reenact some of this, you won't make some of the same mistakes as you did the first time, or at least the learning curve will be shorter or whatever else. So yeah, great. Are there any other kind of like burning questions that y'all have that you'd love to have answered? I know Christine was asking Joseph, are you guys creating your material from scratch or using prepackaged stuff?
Yeah, again, like we're cheating. We're using things that we're finding for free that are out there, not trying to recreate stuff. I have a tension on my team. The younger, we're like, we're going to over productionize it. We're going to do this. And we're like, cool. Yeah, we don't have to. People miss you as leaders. They miss your face. The kids in the ministry are missing your face. I'm still something that Chris Brown said in the last meeting. He's like, you don't compete with Hollywood. Like, we don't have to. They miss your face. They want to see you. So be authentic and be you. It doesn't have to. It could be, it could be done extremely well, but it can also be done on a phone. Our phones have amazing capabilities in today's age, or meetings like this. Like, don't feel the need to overproduction a summer package. We're just finding something and saying, hey, that's some plug and play stuff that we can do, and then we're building on top of that. Then you can do amazing creative things on top of something that someone already has built. So we found we use a lot of orange stuff. So we use the orange things that they've already given us and we've already had. So like, it's super easy just to take that stuff and run with it. Yeah.
And that's important coming from a church. You guys are 5,000 on the weekend. So, you might have the capacity to to do more of your own stuff. But rather than killing yourself, you're using what's already out there. I think that's an encouragement for some of our other churches that maybe don't have some of those resources in budgets or whatever else. So that's helpful. That's helpful to hear. Well, we only wanted this to go about an hour, and so you know, the rule is you always want to leave people wanting more. So rather than going on too long, I think we'll about wrap it up here. Again, if someone wants to throw out a question real quick, please do so in the chat box in the few remaining minutes. But I think I just want to, first of all, just let you know that we are recording this. This will be available. This will be put on our YouTube channel that we have. You just go to YouTube, type in EFCA West, and this will be up there. You can share this with your team. You can share it with anybody if it's helpful. I think this has been fantastic just to get us all together. The other thing is in the spirit, you know, EFCA West, and a lot of you guys maybe don't even really know who we are, haven't had much interaction with us. But one of the greatest strengths we have is as denominational people is our ability to bring people together that are of like-mindedness in terms of our doctrine, but also hopefully our values of wanting to get the gospel and specifically into the lives and hearts of our young people and our children. And so we share these commonalities, and especially in a time of crisis like this. So all of you that registered, we're going to send you a follow-up email that'll have a link to this presentation. And then we'll just continue. Hopefully we'll be able to keep in contact with you. And then if there's other ways that, you know, I love with the real strength in here, again, I don't have all the answers. Our team at EFCA West doesn't have all the answers. The answers are here. The answers are among you. So please lean on one another and reach out to one another to be able to get these more and more resources going. And I think we learn together as we come together. And this is a unique time for us. I want you to know that you're not alone, that we're going to get through this whole thing together. And I'm amazed at what God's done through so many of your efforts. And so I'm going to ask Bob Osborne, Bob with the beard, to Bob, would you pray over our children's ministry leaders and pastors as we close today?
Would love to do that. Thank you, Tim. Let's pray. Father God, thank you so much for these servants of yours who have joined us this morning. And I just pray that the time that we spent together, the things that we spent talking about, the stuff that Joseph shared with us will be a benefit for us as we seek to lead our ministries, as we seek to have children grow in their faith and their confidence in you. Lord, I ask your protection upon these who minister in the trenches. I pray not just for their physical safety from this virus and other things, but also for their spiritual and emotional health, that you would give them times of refreshment, even in this time of uncertainty. That there would be people who can come alongside them to encourage them. Pray that they would encourage one another. Pray that they would see some breakthroughs in their ministries, that there would be some things that will pop up in terms of growth of parents or the children they serve that would be of just great encouragement. And Lord, we look excitedly to what's going to happen in the future. We don't know what it brings, but we know you're in control of it. And it's such a blessing to be able to serve you and to serve your church. So Lord, thank you for the chance we had to talk together. Again, we pray that the things that we talked about will be of benefit to the furthering of your kingdom and our role in that. In Jesus' name, amen.
Well, thanks again for being a part of this. Again, thank you to Joseph. Boy, I really appreciate so much what you said. I love your energy. I love the passion you have. Thank you for taking an hour out of your time to be with us. I also want to make sure you remember our team, Bob Osborne, who just prayed. He's our church health guy. And so anything doing with church health, we'd love to talk to you. You can pass it on to anybody that might be, your pastor, your lead pastor, whoever. Sochi Kachon and our admin. So she's here to help with anything that you might need along the way as well. So, hey, thanks so much. And we love you guys. We're praying for you. And we will talk to you later on. God bless.
I'm going to share my email really quick. If anyone needs anything, here's an email. You can definitely reach me and contact me. And I probably will contact someone who's smarter than me and get you in contact with them.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
See ya.